having the director, your registration exchanges and market infrastructure, the Securities and Exchange Commission, joining us this morning to help us understand more about this. She should be joining us from our Abuja studio. I wonder if we have joining us for the program at this time, Mrs. Hafsat Rufai. Mrs. Rufai joining us from our Abuja studio at this time. Good morning, Mrs. Rufai.
Good morning.
Well, thank you for coming on the program. I think we just have to start with the first one, which is what was supposed to start today but has been postponed. Can we know why the Securities and Exchange Commission is postponing the starting of this?
Okay, so good morning again. I guess you mean the postponement by the NGX, that is the Nigerian Nigerian Exchange Limited, I beg your pardon, of the new pricing methodology. Now, the NGX had to postpone that because it decided to have more engagement with stakeholders before implementing the new pricing methodology. The pricing methodology has duly been approved by the Securities and Exchange Commission, where I work. And when we approve the rules of the NGX, it is up to them to determine the appropriate time to commence implementation. In this case, the NGX had gone on air or had informed the public that it was going to start today, but the NGX then realized that there's need for more engagement. And this is because we have been using the old or the current pricing methodology for a very long time, and people need to understand the change that we're bringing about, introducing the various bands that were not there before. And so they felt that it shouldn't be so abrupt, changing such methodology without adequately engaging the stakeholders. That's why the change, that's why implementation has been put on hold in the meantime. But I'm sure that at the appropriate time it would commence.
Yeah, I mean, since we have you here and you did talk about the engagement and helping more people understand, could you help us to understand the workings, what all of this means, and what it could, how it could apply, to investors and all of that?
Thank you. So currently, for prices of securities to change at the NGX, 100,000 units need to be traded. All right, so that is to affect the closing price for a day compared with the closing price of the previous day. So we allow a band of 10% up or down from the previous day's close. However, we discovered that we could do better with price discovery. Some years back, we didn't have high cap stocks where prices are above 1,000 naira, for instance, and then looking at all that is happening now, the market is growing, interest is improving in the market. When I say interest, there's more participation in the market. People are getting to know more about the market and doing more transactions. So we just felt that there will be more appropriate price discovery if we allow the tranching, that is applying bands when it comes to the volumes to be traded. So for instance, rather than stick to only 100,000 units of shares to be traded to change the price compared with the previous day's closing price, we now have 3 bands. The first one being 1,000 naira and above. So with shares of 1,000 naira and above, when the implementation commences, we will need only 10,000 units to be traded before the current day's closing price can be affected. Compared with the previous day's closing price. The next band is the band that is slightly below 1,000 naira, so 999.99 naira. That's 999 naira 99 kobo to 500 naira. That's the next band, and then you will need only about 50,000 units to change the price of stocks in that band compared with the previous day's price. And then the last band being the stocks are below 500 naira each would still remain in the 100,000 unit band. So with this, we have stratified the market delineating between low cap stocks and the high cap stocks, and then prices will then change in that manner. So you don't need 100 million units to be able to, 100 million naira, for instance, to be able to change the price of a high cap stock anymore. That's what we're saying. So I think it will just democratize the market more. It will also allow better price discovery. So you are not bound to do very huge units before you can reflect prices appropriately. That's what it's about.
All right, thank you. And also late last week, the SEC talked about 5 p.m. Deadline for T+1. Could you help us understand what that means?
Oh, thank you very much. So the capital markets hitherto, so I need to explain what T+1 is, and then I'll talk about the 5 p.m. deadline. So hitherto, we were on T+3 settlement cycle for several years. And then last year, we took a decision that we need to do more with modernizing our markets and increasing its competitiveness, its attractiveness, liquidity, reduction in settlement risk, and so on. So we changed the settlement cycle to T+2 on November 28th last year. And then on 1st of June this year, being 1st of June 2026, we migrated from T+2 to T+1. Now, T means transaction day or the trade day. When your shares are bought or sold on a particular day, that is day T. And then +1, which is the current settlement cycle, means that when you buy your shares, say for instance you buy today being a Monday, the shares will settle in your account by 5 p.m. tomorrow. The emphasis on 5 p.m. is that over the years, when we were on T+3 or T+2, settlement time was 8 a.m., meaning that if you buy your shares today on T+2, that is trade date, and then 2 days after, which would have been Wednesday when we were on T+2, you would get your shares if you bought, or you get your cash if you sold at 8 a.m. Now, we decided that we need to do better for the Nigerian market by shortening that cycle. So why buy today and wait for another 48 hours or thereabout, or 2 days before you get your security? So we shortened that transaction cycle or settlement cycle, I beg your pardon, to T+1, meaning that the trade day and a day after. That's the first step. And then we decided that, well, settlement will not be 8 o'clock in the morning. It will be 5 p.m. in the evening. The reason being that we also extended trading hours. If you recall, we extended trading hours earlier this year from 2:30 to 4 p.m. at the NGX. And then we thought if market closes at 4 o'clock and we ask people to settle, that is to provide cash and securities at 8 a.m. the next day, that's kind of close to being T+0. It's almost as good as just tell me to pay today. And we don't want that strain. What we want to bring about is competitiveness, it is relief, it is satisfaction with our market. So we changed the time that people had been used to as 8 a.m. for settlement to 5 p.m. in the evening. But of course, we then reduced the number of days. So if you buy your shares today, you get your money by 5 p.m. tomorrow. If you sell your shares today, if you buy your shares today, you get your shares by 5 p.m. tomorrow. If you sell your shares, you will get your cash by 5 p.m. tomorrow in your bank account. And that's why we need to emphasize the 5 p.m. because, for something that has gone on for almost 30 years, people had known our market to be an 8 a.m. settlement market. Now it is a 5 p.m. settlement market. So we needed to put that out in the public so that people would know that they're not putting too much strain on them with the initiative.
And the T+1, how's the adoption been? I guess it's convenient for domestic investors, but I heard things about some complaints from the international investors. How's the adoption, especially from that end?
The adoption has been great. Everyone is happy. So the international investors now, I would say, are represented by the local custodians here in Nigeria, who have a trade association known as the AACN, Association of Asset Custodians of Nigeria. These are made up of custodian banks in Nigeria. Feedback from them has been excellent. They are happy with T+1. The local investors are also happy with T+1. The fear initially was around the availability of cash to settle. Time zone being one of the major considerations. Sometimes, in some countries, when we are closing our market at 4, it's still early in the day over there. Sometimes it's even longer than being early in the day. It's midnight in some countries. And so everybody was concerned about how to source cash or how to source funds for settlement. But knowing that it is not at 8 o'clock, it is 5 p.m., I think that gives enough time for the custodian banks, who are representatives of those investors, to source the funds required and settle the securities and cash as well, because it's a DVP market. It's a delivery versus payment. So far it has been good. We haven't recorded any defaults as a result of unavailability of funds to settle at that time.
All right.
So, it's just a matter of letting everybody understand that the settlement time is not 8 a.m., it is 5 p.m. And with 5 p.m., everybody is good. So far, it has been good. Feedback has also been very excellent.
All right, good to hear that, Mrs. Hafsat Rufai, Director of Registration, Exchanges and Market Infrastructure at the Securities and Exchange Commission. Thank you for taking out some time to explain all of this to us.
My pleasure.